Alrighty guys, first things first, we're going to put our oven on to about 190 degrees fan. So as you know, we always put the oven on slightly high before our cakes go in, just to reduce the amount of heat that is lost when we open the oven door. So that's all ready to go. Let's let it warm up while we do our cupcakes. Alrighty, so first thing we need to do is line our cupcake tray. So I just got some simple white cupcake liners, but it's up to you what colour you want to use. As we're making bonfire cakes, you might want to use some dark brown ones. But all we're going to do is pop this into every cake place, and then it'll be ready for when our mix is ready to go. And there we are. Okay, so on to our cake mix. Now, cupcakes are really simple if you just want to make some plain ones, which is what we're going to be doing, as today's tutorial really is all on decoration. So what we're going to do is weigh 2 eggs, and whatever the weight these eggs are, we're going to measure out the same amount of all the other ingredients. So I'm going to pop my jug on there and zero it out. There we go. And pop my eggs in just to see how much they weigh. So that comes to 116 grams. So we're going to keep our eggs in there for later, and now we're going to quickly weigh out all of our other ingredients to the same weight. Alrighty, so I've got my mixing bowl and I'm going to place that on the scales and zero it out. So again, we can weigh our ingredients directly into our bowl. Now the things that we're going to mix together first is our caster sugar, too much there, okay. Next up is our butter, so we zero out our scales again. I'm just going to add this bit by bit just to make sure that we don't put too much in all in one go. I'm using unsalted butter for the cakes, but when it comes to the decoration, I actually find that salted butter works a lot nicer for making a really good buttercream. So there we go. A little bit over, just take a smidge out of there, and that will do it. Okay, so now that that's ready, we're going to pop this in our mixer. If you are mixing it by hand, don't worry. All you want to do is make sure that it's really light and fluffy. So we're going to pop that in, give it a good old whiz around, and we'll see it when it comes back out. Okay, so that's all been around the mixer. As you can see, it's nice and well combined, very smooth. So next thing I'm going to do is crack our eggs into there. So we'll crack it into our jug. And as I always say, the reason why I crack it into a jug separately is just in case your eggs are off, because otherwise you've just wasted a whole lot of butter and sugar because you've gone off eggs. But these seem absolutely fine. So we're going to just literally chuck them in nice and easy and pop them back on the mixer. It will look very runny as we just added basically a lot of liquid, but it's not to worry, because next thing we're going to do is separately weigh out our flour and then gradually add it in the mixer. Okay, so while our eggs are being mixed in, we are now going to weigh out our flour. The reason we're going to put it in a separate bowl is because you don't want to add it all in one go. We're going to have it mixing and gradually fold it in, otherwise it just goes very lumpy. So we're going to put 116 grams of self-raising flour in our bowl. And to this we're also going to add 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, and we're also going to add some vanilla extract into our cake mix as we fold this in. So this is what our cake mix is looking like at the minute. As you can see, it looks a little bit like scrambled egg, but that's completely normal. And all we're going to do now is very, very slowly just add a couple of spoons at a time to our mix, and then pop it back in the mixer until that's all combined, and then we just keep going until it's all gone. I'm also going to put in a splash of vanilla extract now. There we go. So we'll just mix that until it's all combined. Okay, so we've combined all our flour, and this is what our mix should look like now. So it's very light and a little bit soft. I did add a splash of milk, I'd say about 2 tablespoons maximum, but I added it very, very gradually just to slacken it off a little bit as it was quite stiff. So the next step is to get them in the oven. So we're going to take a tablespoon and a teaspoon and just separate it evenly across our 12 cake cases, and then they're ready to go in the oven. Okay, so once you've got an even amount across all 12 of your cake cases, it's time to pop them in the oven. Just remember when you put them in to turn your oven back down to between 170 and 175 fan. They're going to go in for approximately 15 minutes, but halfway through, around the 7-minute mark, you want to just quickly pop the open oven and spin them around so you get an even bake across all 12 of them. Okay, so my cupcakes have been in for 15 minutes. They've come out a lovely colour, and as you can see, having the oven turned down helps you get a really flat top as well, which is just what you want for decorating. So I'm going to give them a couple minutes, and once they're slightly cooler to the touch, I'm going to transfer them to a cooling rack, and then when they are stone cold, we will start decorating them. Okay, so I'm sure you can tell it's a completely different time of day. The cupcakes came out really well last night, but by the time they cooled down, time was cracking on. So I popped them in a tin overnight to keep them nice and safe. And now we are going to start making our buttercream. So the first thing that we need is 250 grams of salted butter. I'm just going to weigh it to make sure it's right. And then when you're making buttercream, the best thing to remember is however much your butter weighs, you want exactly double of that for your icing sugar. So we're going to be using basically 500 grams of icing sugar, and this should make enough to cover all of our cupcakes and do our bonfire decoration as well. Now the next thing we want to do is it's just pop this into a bowl. Now I have already cubed it in the packet as I find that easier, but you do want to make sure you cut it down fairly small, just so that when it goes in the mixer, it's not too much to try and mix around all at the same time. So we're just going to pop that in our mixer on a medium to high speed, and make sure it's really nice and creamy, and then we'll start adding our icing sugar. Okay, so that's all whizzed up now. As you can see, it's quite fluffy in there. So as it was basically 250 grams of butter, I'm just going to be gradually adding a 500 gram bag of icing sugar. Obviously, if you are making more or less, just make sure you weigh it out in a separate bowl, and then you just gradually add it as you're mixing to it. So I'm going to start adding this in while it's spinning around, and then it'll be ready to go. Okay, so once your icing sugar is all mixed in, you just want to whip it on high for about 3 to 4 minutes to get it really, really light and fluffy. You might find that while it is mixing, you need to just quickly scrape down the bowl. So I've got my spatula here. I'm literally just going to put it off the beater and push it back down into the bowl. If you notice that your mix is quite stiff, you might want to add some milk. Just be careful if you do add milk that your cake stays in the fridge, otherwise obviously it will go off. So I avoid using milk if possible, but if we need it because it's too stiff, then we'll add a little bit towards the end. Okay, so now our buttercream is nice and fluffy. It's time to divide it into our bowls. Now I'm going to use the large mixing bowl that it's already in to make the chocolate base for our bonfire. And then we have 3 different bowls here. One is going to be red, one is going to be yellow, and one is going to be orange. But with the flames, we're not going to be making that many on our cake. The basis really is the chocolate. So we're just going to put a very small amount in each one and give it a quick colour. Okay, so now that our buttercream's divided and ready for colouring, I'm going to be using Wilton's food colouring. They look like this, and we've got a yellow and a red, so I'm going to be making orange today. And what I would say is these are like a gel food colouring, and they do seem to produce a much better colour than like liquids when you get them in a little bottle. But again, if that's what you have, not to worry. Just be careful you don't use too much, as food colouring can give your icing a bit of a funny taste if you put way too much in there. So we're just going to add it very, very gradually until we get the desired colours that we want. Okay, so we've made our 3 different coloured icings, and now we've got to make our chocolate base. So to the leftovers of our buttercream, I am going to add 1.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and I'm also going to add a bit of a secret ingredient which I discovered not that long ago, actually, only I would say 2 or 3 months ago. And it's espresso powder. I'm using Nescafe today because it's very, very fine. But it's up to you which one you'd want to try. But literally I'm just going to put like a 1/3 of a teaspoon in there. And you may think, oh, I really don't like the taste of coffee. But it doesn't actually taste of it. It just makes the chocolate really pop. I use it in my chocolate cakes as well. And I've noticed ever since I've started using it, I get quite a lot of compliments on chocolate cake. More than I used to, so I would definitely recommend giving that a try. So all I'm going to do is pop this back in the mixer now on a high speed until it's all combined. I may be adding milk to this, but I will let you know when it's nearly done. Okay, so our chocolate mixture is ready to go, and now it's on to the tricky bit, which is piping. So what we need is piping bags like these ones. Again, I'm using Wilton. I find the disposable bags really, really good. They haven't bust on me or anything like that. But again, it's up to you. Some people like to use reusable ones, but because we've got 4 different colours to be piping, I think disposable is going to be the way forward. The other thing that you're going to need is a large glass, as we're going to use that to hold our bag. And you're going to also need a selection of nozzles. So I have some star ones with slightly different patterns on them. I again use Wilton piping nozzles, but I have in the past bought ones like these from Tesco's. So if you have something like that, or you're in a bit of a fix and you need some, then that's absolutely fine. But I'm sure you can see the size of them compared to the size of these. These are a lot easier to pipe with. These tend to pop out of the bag, so I'm going to be using these today. Okay, so let's get piping. So what we're going to do is just move our bowls out of the way, nice clear space. Put our glass in the middle, and then we're going to get our piping bag ready. Now these come in almost like sandwich bags. They all come all together and you just pull them off. So I'm going to just pull one off for now. And to get it ready for your piping nozzle, what I tend to do is grab my nozzle, pop it inside the bag and give it a little bit of a shake. Squeeze and squeeze and squeeze until it's as far down as the bag will allow. And if we have a look there, I'm going to cut it just basically between that 4. So it's not too far up, otherwise when you squeeze, you apply the pressure, sometimes the piping nozzle can out of your bag and it'll pop and go everywhere. So yeah, we're just going to quickly cut that down. Take this out again. So I'm going to cut it just across the 4, I think. There we go. I'm going to put our nozzle back inside. So we'll just push it through. And there we go. So as you can see, it's about 1/2 to 2/3 of the way down our nozzle. And I made sure to really pull it through just so that there's no leakage from our buttercream. And then we're going to simply pop it in our cup and fold down the edges. Now you can see we've got a nice easy way to scoop in our buttercream now. So using our chocolate buttercream first, I am going to simply scoop it in. And the handy thing about using a glass is that you can just scrape it on the side without making too much of a mess. Some people like to do this, just they hold it and they make kind of the cup shape with their hand. Personally, I find that a little bit too tricky if I'm being honest, so I like to use a glass to support it instead. And just make sure as you're putting your icing in that you're really pushing it down. You don't want any air bubbles in here, because when you pipe it, if you get an air bubble, if you're making something dainty and you're doing close decoration, like say flowers, you know, you're halfway through your pipe and then it goes and it ruins your completely ruins your design. So just make sure you really push it down, and then all you do is roll your bag back off your glass and give it a bit of a shake. And as you can see, there's quite a gap here, so all we're going to do is twist the bag and push, twist and push until we see it at the end, and then we know that we're ready to go. And there we have it. So I think what we'll do is ice our cupcakes all in our chocolate, and then we'll get ready for the next bags. Okay, so we've got our cupcakes ready and we've got our icing ready. So I am going to use 2 hands for this. If you find that your mixture is a bit stiff coming out of the piping bag, just warm it up in your hands for a little bit, roll it around a little bit, give it a bit of a squish, and it should come out fine. But I use 2 hands when I squeeze out of the piping bag, and I find that makes it a lot easier. So all we're going to do is put our cake on a nice flat base, and then starting in the middle, just going to go round in a circle, and that will make a really, really nice base for our bonfire. There we go. So just carry on doing that with all 12 of your cupcakes, and then once they're ready, we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so that's my last cupcake finished, and what I'm going to do now is just make another small swirl, but build it up upon itself in the middle. So we have like a little turret on our cupcake. The reason we need that is because we need something to balance our flakes on. It's all going to be covered over, so don't worry if it's going to be neat. I have actually had a disaster of my own because my mix was cold, so don't worry if that happens. I'm just going to cover this up now with Bonfire mix, so it's absolutely fine. We're just going to make our little turret in the middle. There we go, and pop it on the side. So carry on doing that with all 12 of your cupcakes. Again, as I said, don't worry if they look a little bit messy. They don't need to be perfect, because we're going to be covering them over. And again, if you're doing it with your children, then if they end up like that, no problem, it's still going to taste the same. So we'll just keep going with our other cupcakes, and then we will get down to piping on our decoration. so the base of our bonfire is ready. Now it's time to make our sticks. So I'm using flakes as I think they have the best effect, and all I'm going to do is chop them in half, and then in about a quarter each. Now you don't want them to go down to absolutely nothing, but small pieces and big pieces are really good. A bit of variation is great. So we might not use all of this, but we'll cut it up just in case we want all of it. Okay, so now they're chopped up, all we need now is a cupcake, like this one. What we're going to do is choose a couple different size pieces, so maybe this one, and just start gently placing them on. You want to leave a little bit of room to be able to put your piped icing on there as well. But you want it to build up like a little bonfire. If you want to put any small pieces in as well at the bottom, just to give it that bit of authentic look, then you can. Just make sure that everything is nice and secure. It's not going to fall off. And there we go. So that is ready now for our flames. So again, this stage, do all your cupcakes with your sticks and twigs on, and then we'll move on to the piping stage. Okay, so our cupcakes are all ready to go with their bonfire sticks. Now the next thing to make is our flames. So again, we're going to need a glass, a piping bag and a nozzle. Now I am using one of my smaller ones today, as I don't think one like this will work very well, it's just too big. So because we want to do a lot of detail, I'm going to use a small one. So again, we need to measure it out, check where it fits in our bag. I imagine it's going to fit right near the bottom, which it does. So I'm literally just going to snip the tip off this bag. And push the nozzle through. So if you find, like now, you haven't snipped off enough, just push the nozzle back in. Bit of a tricky procedure, but we did it. And then just snip off a little bit more. Don't hack off a load in one go, otherwise you'll find that when you put your nozzle back in, you've actually chopped off too much. So we'll just push that through again until it's a nice tight fit, which it is. Now I would recommend with the small ones, keep it quite close to the end. The higher up you go, the more likely it is to shoot out. So that's ready, so I'll put that in our glass. Now I am going to start with the yellow icing, and I'm actually going to use the same bag for all three, which is why I'm going to start with the lighter colour, and that should give us quite a nice tricolour effect. So all I want to do is place a small scoop in our bag. Now we have obviously got more icing. If we find that we need more, we'll just put more in the bag. But I don't want to put too much in there in case we've got more than we need, and then we're on to the next colour. So again, just pull it out. Because we're not putting a lot in our bag, it might not have a lot of weight to it. But again, you just want to squeeze it down all the way to the nozzle until we see it come through at the end. So there we go. And then we're just going to get one of our cakes, and in the gaps just pipe flat onto the cake and pull up like that. So we only want a couple of each colour on each one. There we go. And again, just continue doing this on all of your cakes. And if it does feel a bit stiff as you're piping, because we've only got a small amount in our bag, it should warm up quite quickly as well, which is good. I'm going to put, I think, about 3 of each colour on each cupcake. So just keep going. And if you run out of icing in your bag, just pop it back in your glass, unfold it again, and then put some more mixture in. Just make sure that you squeeze the bag right down so there's no air gaps in there. Okay, so that's what we've got left in our piping bag. So I'm just going to literally give this a quick squeeze out, gently but quickly, out into the yellow bowl. There we go. So it's basically ready again. And then we're going to get our glass, unfold our piping bag again, and get our orange colour. So here is orange. And then we're just going to do exactly the same thing. So we're just going to put a small amount in our bag. Now, one thing that is really nice about these cakes is you don't have to worry too much if it is completely combined with the food colouring. If you have little splodges in there, it makes quite a nice effect because it's got like the stripes on it. So don't worry if when you find, like just now, that it hasn't mixed completely at the bottom. It's not a problem, it's going to make a really nice effect. So again, wiggle the piping bag off the glass. And then just push it down and twist. Push it down and twist. You may find that some icing comes out, so it might be handy to have a bowl there, just in case, because obviously as you squeeze, the air pressure inside the bag is pushing out what's left of that yellow icing from your nozzle. And then if I show you when you squeeze, you start getting the orange through as well, and it makes quite a nice effect. So again, just carry on piping 2 to 3 of these colours onto your cake. Carry on again with the red, and then we're going to add our glitter at the end.
I could play any game for you. I could say what you want me to. I could lie.
Okay, so our cupcakes have got their little flames on them. Now the last little thing that I'm going to add is a little bit of edible glitter. It's up to you if you want to do this bit or not. I use glitter quite a bit, so I have it in the cupboard. But all you do is grab a paintbrush. Obviously I have these for decorating. You can just use like your finger if you want to, but I find paintbrush is a bit easier to tap. So I'm going to tap a bit of excess off, and then I'm just going to literally gently tap it over. And there we go, it's just got a little bit of a shine to it now. And that's it, they're ready.